Hey class, Prof. JC here. I really appreciate what we're going to talk about this week because it surrounds this idea of listening, which is a really important tool that leaders need to have in their toolbox. But it may surprise you how many leaders don't have the tool of listening in their toolbox. And you may know this. You probably worked for a leader or two or three who doesn't know how to listen very well. Maybe you've wrestled with that in your own leadership. If you were to ask the people who follow you, maybe they would say the same thing about you, is that you aren't really a great listener. Maybe somebody has told you that listening is not a strength of yours. But this is a really important piece of listening. So we're going to dive in onto this this week. Part of your reading discusses this. I'm on page 127 in our Serve to Lead book here. And I just want to read through this a little bit, and then we're going to get to kind of, what we've titled this today is listening as an act of service. Listening as an act of service. By the way, I want to tell you my apologies that this podcast is not out on an actual podcast this week because I left my podcasting that computer. I left that back. Back at home. I'm traveling this week, so I'll get that up on the actual podcast, but probably not until I get back into town around Wednesday. So if you're listening to this after Wednesday, then this won't affect you. Okay, so let's dive in here. Page 127. He's talking about Starbucks here, and I just want to read just a little bit because there's a couple of phrases down here that I really want to get to. The Starbucks experience is unique. The thinking behind it is not a limitation of many traditional organizations, is their tendency to work from the inside out, okay? And I think a limitation a lot of people have is working from the inside out, right? When people are trying to decide how they want to approach the marketplace, when people are trying to decide how they want to start a business, they're thinking about themselves and what do I want to do versus what does the marketplace need, right? So they're thinking from the inside out. There has long been an assumption, often unspoken or unexamined, that a centralized group of experts would come up with the best ideas for products or services, right? And we've seen it. If you study corporate America, that's kind of how it began. And there were a lot of brilliant people who came up with a lot of products that we use even today. And they were a centralized group. So they would come up with the best ideas for products or services. In turn, the enterprise would produce and sell them. So you had maybe a business development group. Maybe it's not business development. You'd have a product development group, and their job would be to come up with all the fascinating ideas, and then you would have the enterprise would make them, and you'd have the marketing department that would sell them. And again, if you study how businesses move, there were a lot of products that we take for granted today that weren't in existence. I'm reading a great book. I think it's right back there, actually. It's called Power Failure. I think I've mentioned it in one of my podcasts before, and it's fascinating to see how GE, General Electric, came into the marketplace. They actually invented their products, they invented the industry, and invented the market. I mean, it's incredible, right? That's how you want to succeed. If you really want to succeed in business, invent the product, invent the marketplace, invent the industry, right? But those days probably, I don't want to say those days are gone because there's more technology on the way in the next several years, right? We're seeing it faster and faster all the time. But that's kind of how corporations used to run. By contrast, the book says effective 21st century organizations, that's you, that's me, okay, create value from the outside in. They engage those they would serve. They listen and learn from them. That learning is not simply about how to better sell their wares. They attempt to divine how to create products and services and experiences that best serve their customers, especially if that points to necessary innovation. It provides a quote here, and the quote says, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Of course, you would have them do unto you what you would choose, not necessarily what they would choose. So, too, you must provide what they choose." It goes on down here to say, many costly errors would have been avoided had companies listened more carefully to those people that they were serving. Even Dell Computer has stumbled when not focusing on its customer's perspective. Founder Michael Dell recalls his company's immense investment in a series of breakthrough products over the years. One, the Olympic line was intended to propel the retail giant to a new level of technological sophistication and market preeminence. Dell scientists and experts were fascinated by their own handiwork. Unfortunately, the dazzling new products encountered customer indifference. The Olympic project failed in the marketplace. Michael Dell, who was the founder of Dell, faced the downside of working from the inside out. And here's what he had to say. The most important lesson was to involve our customers early and often in the development process. We had created a product that was technology for technology's sake, rather than technology for the customer's sake. So, and there's more that you could read there, obviously, in your reading, but I want to get to this idea of listening as an act of service and why it's so important that you listen, why it's so important that we make listening something that we do. It's one of the tools that we put in our toolbox. But I'm going to ask you something real quick. I want you to think about a boss that you've had. I want you to think about somebody that you work for. I want you to think about somebody who maybe that you know who doesn't listen well. I want you to think about that person right now. And here's the question I ask. Why don't you think they listen well? Why don't you think that person that you're thinking about right now, why don't you think that they listen well? Well, there's a lot of reasons, probably a lot of reasons you're giving, and that's why if we were in a class together, we could talk about this. There are a lot of reasons that you could give for why that person probably doesn't listen well, but now I want to turn it to you. I want you to think about your own self as a leader, whether you're a leader in a company, whether you're a leader in your, maybe it's a team inside of a company, maybe you're a leader in your home, right? If you struggle with listening, and if you're honest, because you're in a leadership program, you're in a business program, here's what I know about you. You've pursued this direction because you want to make a difference, because you believe you can make the difference. And oftentimes you probably think you can make a better difference than other people around you. And you're probably right. You're probably right about that. So I want you to think about yourself in those moments when you don't listen. Why don't you listen? Why don't we listen? Why don't I listen? And here's the reason why. Almost 100% of the time, here's the reason why. We don't listen because we think we have all the answers. And especially in the workplace, we don't listen to employees, we don't listen to customers, we don't listen to people around us because we think we have all the answers oftentimes. We think we have all the answers. And the reality is, obviously, as you know, and I know, that we don't. Every product, or most products that we see in existence today, especially today, they really have come from some kind of a customer need, a business that has been very smart about listening to their customers. What do their customers want? And then making that happen. And it kind of goes back to this mindset of humility. And I'm talking about that in my other class that I'm with students. It's the other 1 unit class where we're looking at the idea of purpose in that class. And this week we're talking about empowering leadership and how important it is for people to put other people first, right? And that's the idea of humility. If a leader truly is a humble leader, I don't mean the kind of leader who's going to be walked all over. I'm not talking about the kind of leader who is sheepish and meek and doesn't speak up for him or herself. Probably if that's you, you're not going to be a great leader. You got to learn how to speak up for yourself if you're going to be an effective leader. But I think the greatest leaders really are leaders who are marked by humility. And that means that they, as I said in the other class, in the other podcast, that these are people who, it's not that they think less of themselves, but they think of themselves less. And so when they're listening, when they're leading, it's always considering the other person. It's always thinking about what's best for them, what's best for the company, what's best for them. So I'm up here in Colorado right now, and it's a town, I guess. I just learned all this. It's a town called Beaver Creek in Colorado. It's right near Avon and Vail. If you've ever been up here into the Colorado Rockies, and I'm sure that some of you have. Beautiful area at this time of year. Oh my goodness. I don't know if I could ever come up here in the wintertime. I'm just not a cold weather kind of guy, but it's beautiful. But the reason why I'm up here is because we've been hired my colleague David and I. David owns the company. He owns the consulting firm. We've been hired to come up here to the Park Hyatt and to work with their middle management. And this group of middle managers, I'm really excited about this training that's going to happen tomorrow morning. They're all very successful. To get to managing at a Park Hyatt, my understanding in the hotel world, this is like the creme de la creme. There's only, I think I counted them up. I was doing some research on Park Hyatt earlier today. There's like 47 Park Hyatts. Beaver Creek, this location has consistently landed in like the top 10 of all the Park Hyatts in the world. And again, Park Hyatt is like the creme de la creme of Hyatts. So in order to get here, you have to do a great job. The issue that we're having, and it's why we've been called up to do this training tomorrow, is a lot of the leaders here are the managers here. They're on L1 visas. Okay, they've come from places like the Middle East or from China, from Asia, where they have worked in Park Hyatts there and they've led. But if you lead in these other countries, it's just different. And I'm not going to say whether we're better or they're better or what. It's just different. And so here in the United States, what matters is empowering your people. What matters is listening and taking care of your people. Everything that we're talking about in this entire program, all the classes you've taken are really geared towards being a good business person, being a good leader here in kind of the westernized view of leadership. But in other countries, it's different. In the Middle East, if somebody works overtime and you didn't approve it, you can go on there and just scratch off. You just go on there and scratch off. Hey, yes, you worked 50 hours. You're only supposed to work 40, so I'm not paying you for the extra 10. And so some of these managers have been trying to do that here. And they come to the United States and they're up here in the mountain with these, mountain folk that live up here. And there's not, a list of 250 people behind every job, right? So if you fire one, you're going to have someone else come in the next day. It's not how it works up here. And so you've got some of these leaders that are taking their leadership styles from the Middle East. They're taking their leadership styles from maybe Asia and some places where you just get to lead a little bit differently. You can lead differently and still be effective. It doesn't work in the United States. And so one of the issues, and so yesterday I was kind of walking around and I was having some conversations with some of the staff members and I was just telling them, hey, this is all confidential. I'm not going to tell anybody, but just from your perspective, we have a group of leaders and managers in the room on Monday, and we're going to be providing training. Is there something that you want is there something that you would want them to know that they should know from the line staff? And consistently across the board, I heard people say we need better communication and we wish that our leaders and our managers would listen to us. That's what they're saying. And these staff members, I'm telling you, down at the front line, they are incredible. I'm sure they've had to work really hard to get here. They're good workers. They're solid workers. They're passionate about their brand. They're passionate about the company, but they want to be listened to. So this is everything we're trying to talk about here. Okay. And it's in the marketplace. And the reason why I'm telling you that story and telling you about the situation is because this is going to be you. This is you. And I guarantee you may not think so. Okay, there's another chart we're going to show tomorrow where it's like 75% of leaders, managers, think they're doing an amazing job. But when you turn around and you ask the actual employees, only 43% of those employees say that those managers who think they're doing a great job, only 43% responded and said, yes, we think that manager's doing a good job. So there's a real disconnect there. And a big piece of it is this idea of communication. And if you're not communicating well, I promise you, you're not being successful in your leadership. So here's what I want to offer you up today. Okay. Here's what I want to offer you up today. I think that there are 4 people that you need to listen to, 4 groups of people, 4 people, whatever it is that you need to listen to. So let's just say 4 people you need to listen to. That's what we're going to call this today. The 4 people you need to listen to before you make a decision in the organization. Okay. Now you can apply this to family. You can apply this however you want to, but we're talking about the organization because this is business and leadership. So number 1 is this: you've got to listen to your customers. That's number 1, right? If you're an established, if you're an established company and established organization, you've got to be getting out there, getting boots on the ground, listening to what your customers are saying. Ask them what they appreciate about your product. Asking them what they would do better if they were in a position to change the product, and really listen to what they have to say. That's why a lot of times today we've got customer surveys, and they go out all the time. I think I was filling out something the other day, and I forget what it was, but it was something. And as soon as I got done, they said, tell us how we did, right? They want to know and give us some feedback. You've been on those websites before as well. Tell us how we did. Tell us how all that looks. Okay. And the reason why they do that is because I think people understand, as business has matured over the last 200, 300 years here in the United States, that it needs to be customer centric, because these are the people who are going to buy your product. So you've got to listen to your customers. Now you say, I'm a nonprofit, JC, it doesn't work the same way. Well, yes, it does. You've got to get out there and you've got to listen to the people who are on the ground, find out what their needs are, find out what money you need to be raising. I know people who are trying to start and it's none of you on the call. Okay. It's nobody at Point Loma. I want to make that clear, because I know some people at Point Loma and even our leadership programs who are starting nonprofits, and this is not you. But I know of some people who are trying to start nonprofits because of what they are passionate about, but it's not going to do anything to bring in money. There's not big federal contracts for it. There's not going to be, state contracts, government contracts. And if you've ever run a nonprofit, you know how important that governmental money is to helping you run the nonprofit. It's just the way it is, right? Money, I don't care if you're on the nonprofit side or the for-profit side, money makes the world go round. It just is. That's the way it is. And I'm not here to argue that, okay? That's just the way it is. But if you're a nonprofit leader and you're trying to start something you're passionate about, your community may not be passionate about it. And even worse than that, there may not be any funding out there. There's no billionaire or millionaire, multimillionaire who cares about that, who wants to give you money for it. So you got to get out there and listen. You've got to listen as a nonprofit leader to your community. What are the needs of your community? Then you've got to go out and talk to the people of means, talk to the government workers, talk to them and say, what are the biggest needs that the government is giving to? And then from all of that, you can kind of figure out where you're going. So you got to listen to your customer. Number two, you've got to listen to your employees. And this is key here. Okay. I'm an associate professor of leadership, so I'm very passionate about leadership. And one of the biggest things that I'm passionate about is being an empowering leader. Now, that's from my other class. I'm not here to talk about that. That's what we're actually talking about this week in the other class. But part of empowering your leaders is listening to them, understanding who they are, where they want to go in relation to where the company's going, and then helping them do that. But that means listening. And here's the deal. Nobody knows better about what the issues of the customer are than your employees, than your line staff, right? It is amazing to me how many companies have policies where the frontline staff have to, if they need to make a decision that needs to be made really in like 3 minutes, they've got to go talk to this person, then they've got to talk to another manager, and they got to go up another level before they can make a decision that's happening right there. Okay, that shows me, when I hear a company that does that, that shows me a lack of trust and a lack of training. You haven't trained your people well, or you're hiring the wrong people, right? So you're hiring the wrong employees, or you're not. I think it's more of you're not training your employees well. You're not training them how to do the job on the front line. And therefore, you're not trusting them, that they're not making the right decisions because you're not training them well enough. And so because of that, you're pulling back as much power as you can. But here's the deal. Your employees know more about your company than what you think they do, and they know what's working and what's not working on the ground. You got to listen to your employees. Number three, you've got to listen to your team. Okay. So now, again, I'm assuming I'm talking to business leaders. I'm talking to business and nonprofit leaders, ministry leaders as well. I'm talking to all of you out there. You've got to listen to your customers. You got to listen to your employee, and then you got to listen to your team. And a lot of people struggle to do this. And here's what I figured out why the reason is. People hire their employees, and then they have a mindset that says, well, I'm better than these employees. I'm the one who hired them. I don't need their input. That's not the empowering leader. That's not good leadership. And and I hope that's not you. The mindset needs to be, I'm hiring really good people so they can surround me with really good information. And from that good information, I can make really good decisions. Man, that is good right there. Okay, I'm going to say it one more time. I'm hiring really good people so they can bring good information, and that information will help me as a leader, help you as a leader make good decisions. That's what it's all about. But it starts with hiring the right people. Now you say, JC, you don't know what I've walked into. I've got a team. Well, then you got to set the standards. And that's a whole nother video podcast. You got to set the standards and say, here's where we're going. And then you got to be patient. You can't just start firing a bunch of people right away. That's how you lose morale and all kinds of stuff. And that's probably how you're going to lose your job as well, right? If you're not able to lead your people to do better. But you've got to You've got to listen to your team. And if they're a team that can't be listened to, that they're really that poor, you've got to set the standard high enough. You've got to do your best, be patient, slow down, help them get there. And if they can't reach the standard, then you got to, as I like to say, release them off to their destiny, right? Find another place for them to go where they can fit, because really it's always about the mission. It's always about the mission. And for a for-profit company, it's about making money. For a nonprofit company, it's about impacting the community. And those come first, right? So if you're not making money, you're losing money because people around you are giving you bad information, or you're not having as much impact in your community because people around you are giving you bad information. You got to find better people. But before you do that, try to train them up and help them become the kind of people you need. Okay. So listen to your customers, listen to your employees, listen to your team. And then the last one I think is really important. Listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. Okay. Now, this one is important. I think that great leaders need to have great intuition. But here's what gets us in trouble all the time, leaders, is we're listening to ourselves first. We're almost taking this in reverse. We make up our mind, and then we tell our team, then we tell the employees, and then we tell the customers. And that's not the way it needs to work. Right? The stats show that when you listen to your customers, the stories show, the case studies show that when you put your customers first, your employees, your team members, you listen to all these people first, that's going to help inform you as you make your decision. Now, you may say in a team meeting, okay, and when I mean team, okay, I mean everyone who's around you individually, the people that you have touch points with. So it could be your team of 5 people. If you're a CEO, it could be your board, right? It could be the people that you work with, but you've got to listen to your team. But this idea of listening to yourself means that you've studied, that you've got good intuition. It means that you are educated on the issue, whatever it is. If it's a product line, you've studied that product line. If it's a service, you've really studied that service in and out. You've studied the marketplace. Is the room in the marketplace for this product, for this service, whatever it is, right? So you've studied all that. So you trust yourself. Right? Intuition, I believe, good intuition, okay? Because there are people who think they have intuition and they just make a whole bunch of poor decisions. Good intuition comes because you've made a lot of really good decisions, so you've learned to trust yourself. But I also think a lot of us have gut, right? There was something that happened to me just the other day. Oh, story. So I'm flying up here, right, to I'm flying up here to Denver to make the drive out here to Beaver Creek, and for some reason, so I'm purchasing a ticket, and I don't know what, but for some reason I get to that button. If you've ever purchased a plane ticket, and I always work through Priceline, but I think that sent me to United. So it sent me to United. That's how I flew up here. And there was like one button before you press, and it says, "Hey, do you want to purchase insurance for this flight?" Right? So if you have to cancel, you're going to get your money back, whatever. I never do it. Something happened this time that said, purchase this insurance. You get the insurance. So I sat there and something in my gut was telling me you get the insurance. Now, I didn't listen to my gut, and I didn't get the insurance. Now watch this. The other day, I'm sitting there, I'm picking up my youngest daughter, and I'm trying to check in because I have to fly out on Saturday, right? So I'm trying to check in. And I go to check in, and it says, "Hey, I'm sorry, you can't check in because your flight is more than 24 hours away." I said, "There's no way. My flight is a lot less than I've got to fly out of here, tomorrow morning. It's so much." And I go and I check. I had purchased the ticket, y'all, for Tuesday, I think, like July. I don't know what it was. It was a Tuesday, or it was a Saturday in July. It was a Saturday in July. I want to say it was like July 8th or something like that, till that following Tuesday. I don't know how in the world I ended up doing that, buying a ticket for complete. So now, was I able to get my money back? No. Now, luckily, United, I was able to put some of that money towards the new ticket, whatever. But I'm saying all that to say we have intuition. I didn't listen to it. I think that gets us in trouble as well when we don't listen to our intuition. But intuition has grown over time because you've made a lot of good decisions. I'd like to think I've made a lot of good decisions in my life. That moment, though, I didn't follow my intuition. You should have. So you need to follow your intuition, but that's made over time. But before we get to our intuition, it's really important that we're listening to the people around us. I've talked too long today. You got to listen to your customers. You've got to listen to your employees. You've got to listen to your team. You've got to listen to yourself. So here are the questions I want to ask you today. Very simple. Again, you don't need to write huge paragraphs on this, okay? Especially what we're going to talk about today. Here's the question I want to ask you. This is kind of a reflective question. And I want you to think about this. When you don't listen to your employees, Why don't you listen to them? And I want you to think about the context you're in right now. Think about your organizational context right now. Okay. Why aren't you listening to them? Okay. And if you do, if you're a great listener, then feel free to tell me that too. Okay. But don't lie to yourself. Okay. These reflection exercises are so that you get better at being a leader. So don't lie to yourself. Okay. When you don't listen, and here's what I would say. Every single one of us have moments when we don't listen to people around us. And so I'd really like for you to dive on that. In those moments that you don't, why is it that you don't? Okay. And then I want you to tell me who are the 4 people that you need to listen to, and just tell me why. Okay. Just list 1, 2, 3, 4. Here are the 4 people I need to listen to. And then boom, 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 boom. Here's why. Off the reading. Don't make stuff up. Okay. We're getting to that time. I understand, some of you think these podcasts, I don't want to have to listen to this, but you got to. It's just all part of the program. But I can tell, I'm going to change my language here for this podcast, but there's that don't BS the BS, all right? Don't bullcrap the bullcrapper, right? You got to remember, I've been through all the stuff that you're doing. I've been through all the school and education. I know how to get through, but don't do it. And most of you aren't, okay? Most of you are doing a really great job in this class. But make sure you're listening to the podcast, you're answering the questions fully, okay? That helps me know that you're reflecting and you're getting the job done. Hey guys, you're doing a great job. Thanks so much for all the work that you're doing. Listen, okay? Listen. It is an act of service. That's what this whole class is about. How do we serve the people around us? And one of the best ways we can do it is by listening to others. I'll see you in the next podcast. Take care.